I stood under the broken bus shelter as thunder cracked overhead, watching my mother's silver Mercedes disappear around the corner. My sister Emma sat in the passenger seat, probably already scrolling through her phone, having forgotten I existed. The rain had soaked through my thin jacket 20 minutes ago, and my college acceptance letter, the one I'd been clutching like a lifeline, was now a soggy mess in my hands. This wasn't the first time they'd abandoned me, but it would be the last time I let them. The water pooled around my worn sneakers as I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers. 3 missed calls from Mom, all from after she'd left. I could picture her now, sitting in our warm, marble-floored kitchen, telling Dad how I was being dramatic again, and probably found another ride. Emma would nod along, twirling her designer car keys, the ones to the BMW they'd bought her for her 18th birthday. I'd gotten a card. My finger hovered over the callback button. Then I thought about the letter in my hand, the one they didn't know about yet. Stanford, full scholarship, computer science. And more importantly, I thought about the other acceptance letter, the one from my past life that I'd watched Emma steal and use as her own because I'd lived this all before. 6 months ago, I died in a car accident on my way home from the library. I was 23, working 3 jobs to pay off the student loans my family had refused to help with, still trying to win their love. The last thing I remembered was the headlights, the impact, and then I woke up as my 17-year-old self on the morning of my high school graduation. I had a second chance. And this time, I knew exactly what was coming. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. To me, drenched and shivering, finally ready to burn every bridge they'd built from my bones. I was born Claire Morrison, second daughter to Margaret and Richard Morrison, younger sister to perfect, precious Emma. From the moment I could form memories, I understood my place in the family hierarchy. I was the spare, the backup, the one who existed to make Emma look better. In my first life, I'd accepted this. I'd swallowed every slight, every forgotten birthday, every parent-teacher conference they'd missed because Emma had a recital. I'd smiled through every Christmas where Emma's pile of presents dwarfed mine, every family photo where I was cropped out or standing in the background, every college fund discussion that ended with, "Emma needs it more." My father was a real estate developer, wealthy enough that money should never have been an issue. My mother had been a corporate lawyer before she retired to focus on managing the family, which really meant managing Emma's social calendar and future. They lived in a 6-bedroom house in the suburbs, drove luxury cars, vacationed in Europe twice a year. I wore Emma's hand-me-downs and worked part-time at the local grocery store from age 15. It wasn't just neglect. That would have been easier to bear. It was active, creative cruelty disguised as parenting. When I was 12, I won the regional science fair. My project on water purification was selected to compete at nationals. I came home bursting with excitement, waving my blue ribbon. Mom barely looked up from her laptop. "That's nice, dear. Emma, show your father your new report card, all A's again." Emma's grades were inflated by the private tutors they hired. Mine were earned in the public library after my grocery store shifts. When I was 14, I made the varsity track team, the only freshman to do so. I begged them to come to my first meet. They promised they would. I saw them in the stands when I took my position at the starting line, and my heart soared. Then I watched them leave 5 minutes later when Emma called about a wardrobe emergency before her date. I still won my race. I celebrated alone. When I was 16, I taught myself to code. I built my first app, a study aid that helped students organize their schedules. It got featured in the local news. The reporter called my house for an interview. My mother answered, gave them Emma's name instead, and told them Emma would call back. The article never ran. The pattern was clear. Emma was the golden child, destined for greatness. I was the shadow, useful only for making her shine brighter by comparison. In my first life, the worst betrayal came the day my college acceptance letters arrived. I'd applied to 15 schools, worked myself to exhaustion on my applications and essays. I got into 12 of them, including Stanford with a full scholarship. Emma applied to 6 schools with my parents' help, professional essay coaches, and their generous donations. She got into 3, all safety schools. I never saw my letters. Emma intercepted them from the mail, steamed them open, and when she saw my Stanford acceptance, she panicked. She destroyed my letters and told my parents I'd been rejected everywhere, that I was just too stupid for college. She suggested I take a gap year, work, and figure myself out. My parents believed her without question. Emma went to my meetings with the school counselor pretending to be me, withdrew my applications, and declined all my acceptances using forged emails from an account she set up. By the time I found out, it was too late to fix. The deadlines had passed. I spent the next 5 years working retail and taking community college classes at night, trying to scrape together enough for university. Emma graduated from her mediocre state school and used my parents' connections to land a cushy marketing job. She lived at home, rent-free, while I slept on a friend's couch. I never got my degree. I never got my life. Until the accident gave it back to me. When I woke up as my 17-year-old self, I spent the first week in a state of paranoid confusion. I memorized every detail of my younger face in Pun. The mirror, pinched myself until I bruised, stayed up all night convinced I'd wake up back in my 23-year-old body. Or worse, not wake up at all. But it was real. I had traveled back in time or been reborn or lived through some cosmic glitch. The why didn't matter. What mattered was that I remembered everything. Every betrayal, every theft, every moment of cruelty. And I had 6 months until college acceptance letters were supposed to arrive. This time, I was smarter. I opened a P.O. box in secret and used that address for all my college applications. I applied to the same schools but adjusted my essays with the wisdom of my 23-year-old self. I knew what worked because I'd already done it once. I aced my interviews because I'd lived them before. I also did something new. I documented everything. Every time my parents forgot to pick me up from school, I took a time-stamped photo of myself waiting. Every time they chose Emma over me, I recorded the conversation on my phone. Every time they gave Emma money while telling me to be more independent, I kept a log. I wasn't just preparing for college applications, I was building a case. The science fair victory that they'd ignored? I made sure the local news covered it extensively this time, reaching out directly to reporters. When the article ran with my picture and quotes, I saved a dozen copies. The track meets they'd missed? I befriended a teammate whose mother loved taking photos. I had an entire album of my victories, my medals, my achievements. All time-stamped, all real. All mine. The coding skills I'd developed? I built a better app this time, one that actually took off. By the time I was 17, I had 10,000 downloads and a modest but growing revenue stream. I set up the business in my name only, with a bank account they knew nothing about. I was building a life they couldn't touch, an identity they couldn't steal. But I also knew Emma's playbook. I knew she'd try to intercept my college letters. So I set a trap. I created fake acceptance letters, rejections from every school I'd applied to, and left them where Emma would find them. I watched from my bedroom doorway as she snuck into my room, rifled through my desk, found the letters, and smiled. That smile, so smug, so satisfied, was the smile I'd seen in my dreams for 6 years. The real letters went to my P.O. box: Stanford, MIT, Caltech, Harvard, all acceptances. Stanford with a full ride again plus additional scholarship money for my app development work. I said nothing. I waited. Meanwhile, Emma's applications weren't going as well this time. In my first life, she'd had my essays to plagiarize, my achievements to steal. This time, she only had her own mediocre work. She got into 2 safety schools, same as before, but she'd been so confident she'd get into better programs. She'd bragged to all her friends about applying to Columbia and Yale. The rejections devastated her. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The trap I'd been setting went deeper than college applications, though. I knew how my family operated. They were a unit, a closed circle that kept me on the outside. To truly win, I needed to break that circle. I needed them to turn on each other. So I started planting seeds. A comment here about how Emma seemed stressed lately. A concerned question there about whether they thought Emma was handling the pressure of senior year okay. I showed my mother some of Emma's Instagram posts that implied she was partying more than studying. Posts I'd carefully screenshotted and time-stamped. I'm just worried about her, I'd say, the picture of a concerned sister. I know how much you're counting on her success. The thing about golden children is that they're held to impossible standards. Any crack in the facade is a crisis. My parents started watching Emma more closely, questioning her, doubting her, And Emma, who'd never had to deal with anything but blind adoration, started to crumble under the scrutiny. She got defensive, started lying about little things, got caught lying about bigger things. I just kept my head down, got perfect grades, and waited for the final pieces to fall into place. That brings us to tonight, the night they left me at the bus stop. The rain was finally letting up as I made my decision. I wouldn't call them back. Instead, I called an Uber with money from my secret bank account and went home to execute the final phase of my plan. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, texts from mom asking where I was, demanding to know why I wasn't answering. I could picture her annoyance, the inconvenience of having to think about me. There'd be no concern, no apology for abandoning me in a thunderstorm, just irritation that I was being difficult. I walked into our house soaking wet, tracking water across the marble floors Mom obsessed over. The three of them were in the living room, Dad with his scotch, Mom with her laptop, Emma with her phone. They looked up when I entered, and I saw the flicker of annoyance cross my mother's face. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "I've been calling you." "The bus stop," I said calmly. "Where you left me. In the rain. For 40 minutes. Emma didn't even look up from her phone. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Don't be dramatic, Claire," Mom said. "We forgot you were coming with us. Emma said she told you we'd meet you at home." I looked at Emma. She finally glanced up, her expression perfectly innocent. "I did tell you that, Claire. You must have forgotten." In my first life, this was where I would have apologized, made excuses for myself, shrunk down and disappeared into my room. Not this time. "No," I said simply, as "You didn't, but that's okay. It clarified some things for me." I turned and walked upstairs to my room, ignoring Mom's demand to come back and explain myself. I had work to do. Over the next 2 weeks, I set the dominoes in motion. First, I accepted Stanford's offer using my P.O. box address and my secret phone. I arranged my housing, my class schedule, my student ID, everything. As far as Stanford was concerned, Claire Morrison was enrolled and ready to start in the fall. Second, I withdrew from the high school before graduation, taking my GED instead. I'd already met all the requirements, and the test was easy for someone who'd lived through college once already. My parents didn't even notice I'd stopped going to school. They were too focused on Emma's upcoming graduation party. Third, I started moving my belongings out of the house in small increments. A box of books here, some clothes there. I had everything important stored at a friend's place. A friend whose parents actually liked me, who'd offered me their spare room if I ever needed it. Fourth, and most importantly, I sent a package to my parents' house, timed to arrive on the day of Emma's graduation party. The party was a massive affair, 200 guests, a catered dinner, live music in our backyard. Emma wore a designer dress and held court like a princess. My parents beamed with pride, toasting her bright future at Generic State University. I wore jeans and a Stanford hoodie I'd ordered online. No one noticed. The package arrived at 3 p.m., right in the middle of the party. Mom signed for it, confused by the Stanford return address. She opened it in front of her friends, probably expecting it to be something for Emma. The room went silent. Inside was a full copy of my Stanford acceptance letter, along with my scholarship documentation. Proof that I'd gotten into one of the best schools in the country with a full ride plus stipend. There was also a letter I'd written, explaining exactly what Emma had done in my first life, presented not as time travel, but as a detailed account of Emma's pattern of sabotage that I'd documented this year. Attached were screenshots of Emma's deleted emails from the fake account she'd tried to set up this time around. I'd installed a keylogger on the family computer months ago, just in case she tried the same trick. Evidence of her logging into my accounts, searching for my college application information. Timestamps of her in my room when I wasn't home, captured by the small camera I'd hidden in my bookshelf. I documented everything this time. Every theft, every lie, every attempt to undermine me. But the package contained something else, too. A complete dossier of every moment my parents had neglected me, every broken promise, every time they'd chosen Emma over me. The photos of me waiting at school, the recordings of them dismissing my achievements, the financial records showing how much they'd spent on Emma versus me, a ratio of about 50:1. And finally, a final letter. Dear Mom, Dad, and Emma, By the time you read this, I'll already be gone. I'm leaving for California tomorrow to start my new life at Stanford. A life I earned on my own without any of your mama help. In fact, I succeeded despite your active attempts to hold me back. I want to thank you, actually. You taught me that I can't depend on family. You taught me that blood means nothing without love and respect. You taught me that I'm stronger alone than I ever was trying to earn your approval. I've spent 17 years being your scapegoat, your afterthought, your failure story that makes Emma look better. I've spent 17 years watching you shower her with everything while I got nothing. I've spent 17 years being invisible in my own home. I'm done being invisible. I'm going to Stanford. I'm going to become a software engineer. I'm going to be successful and happy and free, and I'm going to do it all without you. Don't call me. Don't email me. Don't try to find me. I'm not your daughter anymore. I'm not Emma's sister. I'm just Claire, and that's enough. Goodbye. P.S. Emma, I know you tried to steal my college acceptances again this year. I know you've been sabotaging me since we were kids. I know everything. The difference is, this time I was ready for you. This time I have proof. All of it is copied and saved in multiple locations. If you or mom or dad try to interfere with my life at Stanford, if you try to contact me, if you so much as mention my name to my new university, I will release everything to your friends, your school, and the press. I will destroy the perfect image you've built. So let's make a deal. You forget I exist, and I'll forget what you did. Deal? I wasn't at the party when they read all this. I was already on a plane to California, paid for with money from my app. I'd timed everything perfectly, left while they were distracted by guests and celebration. My friend's mother dropped me at the airport. She hugged me tight and told me she was proud of me. It was the first time an adult had said that to me in years. I cried in the bathroom before my flight. My phone exploded with messages as I waited at my gate. Mom, Dad, Emma, all of them calling, texting, leaving voicemails that progressed from angry to confused to panicked. I didn't read any of them. I'd set up a new phone number weeks ago, and after I landed in California, I'd switch over completely. The old Claire Morrison, the one who waited for hours for rides that never came, who made herself small to avoid conflict, who believed she deserved the scraps they threw her. That Claire died in a car accident. Or maybe she died standing in the rain at that bus stop, watching her mother's car disappear. This Claire was someone new, someone who understood her worth, someone who didn't need their love because she'd learned to love herself. The flight was smooth. I slept through most of it, exhausted but peaceful. When we landed in San Francisco, I took a deep breath of California air and felt like I was finally breathing for the first time. Stanford was everything I'd dreamed it would be, both times around. I threw myself into my studies with the confidence of someone who'd already learned these lessons once before. My professors noticed my unusual aptitude, my ability to grasp complex concepts quickly. I didn't tell them it was because I'd already taken these classes in another life. My app continued to grow. By the end of my freshman year, I had 50,000 downloads and was generating real revenue. I hired a small team of other students to help expand it. By sophomore year, I had caught the attention of a venture capital firm interested in investing. I was careful with the money. I remembered being poor in my first life, remembered the desperation of working multiple jobs and still coming up short. This time, I saved aggressively, invested wisely, and built a financial cushion that made me feel safe for the first time in my life. I also went to therapy. Stanford's Student Health Center was excellent, and I spent 2 years working through the trauma of my family's abuse with a counselor who actually understood. She helped me see that the neglect wasn't my fault, that I deserved better, that their failure to love me was their failure, not mine. I made friends, real friends who valued me, who showed up when they said they would, who celebrated my successes without jealousy. I dated a guy from my algorithms class for a year. It didn't work out, but we parted amicably. I learned what healthy relationships looked like. I joined clubs, went to parties, traveled during breaks. I lived the college experience I'd been denied the first time around. It was glorious. I never answered my family's calls. They tried at first. Dozens of voicemails that I deleted without listening to, emails that I filtered directly to trash. They tracked down my dorm address and sent letters that I returned unopened. My mother even tried to contact the university administration, claiming I was mentally ill and needed intervention. I'd anticipated this. I'd already met with the dean of students and explained the situation, showed them the evidence of abuse, the documentation of their neglect. The university's lawyers sent my parents a cease and desist letter. After that, they backed off. For a while. The real test came at the end of my sophomore year when my app exploded in popularity. We hit 1 million downloads in a single week after a major education blog featured us. The revenue jumped from comfortable to substantial. By the time I was a junior, my company was valued at $12 million. That's when they came back. I was in the library studying for midterms when I got an email from an attorney representing my parents. They were suing me, claiming that since I developed the app while living under their roof as a minor, they owned partial rights to it. They wanted 40% of the company and all past revenues. I stared at the email for a long time, feeling the old anxiety creep up my spine. The old Claire would have panicked, maybe even considered giving in just to make them go away. But I wasn't the old Claire anymore. I forwarded the email to my own lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer now, one of the benefits of a successful startup, and let him handle it. It took 3 months and a lot of money, but we won. The judge was particularly scathing in his ruling, noting that my parents had not only failed to contribute to my business, but had actively tried to prevent my success. The case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning they could never sue me over it again. They had to pay my legal fees. The irony was delicious, but the lawsuit had an unintended consequence. It made the news. Not major news, but enough that people started digging into my background. A local reporter from my hometown found the story, brilliant young tech entrepreneur estranged from wealthy family, and started investigating. She reached out to me for an interview. I almost said no. I'd built my new life by leaving the past behind, not by dwelling on it. But then I thought about other kids like me, living in the shadow of golden siblings, being neglected by parents who should have protected them. I thought about Emma, who'd gotten away with her cruelty because I'd stayed silent. So I said yes. The interview ran in a major online magazine. I told everything, the neglect, the abuse, the stolen opportunities. I showed the evidence I'd compiled. I explained how I'd escaped and built my own success. I didn't mention the rebirth, of course. I framed it as a lucky break, a moment of clarity where I'd decided to document everything just in case. But the story resonated. It went viral. Within a week, I was fielding interview requests from major outlets. My story hit a nerve with people who'd experienced similar family dynamics. The article was shared millions of times, with thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories of parental favoritism and sibling rivalry. My company's profile exploded. The publicity drove downloads to 5 million. Investors were lining up. By my senior year, I was running a company worth $50 million while finishing my degree. And my family? They were destroyed. The viral article had included their names. Not because I wanted revenge, the reporter had found the information through public records related to the lawsuit. But once it was out there, the internet did what the internet does. People from my hometown came forward with their own stories. My old teachers talked about how my parents never came to conferences, how they'd tried to intervene and been rebuffed. Emma's former friends shared screenshots of her bragging about her parents' wealth while I wore secondhand clothes. My father's business took a massive hit. Turns out, wealthy people don't want to work with a real estate developer who publicly neglected his daughter while spoiling the other. His clients started dropping him. Within 6 months, his company was in serious financial trouble. My mother's reputation in her social circles evaporated. The women she'd spent years impressing turned on her. She was disinvited from charity boards, excluded from country club events. Her friends wanted nothing to do with her. Emma had it worst of all. She'd just graduated from her mediocre college and was trying to start her career. But every time a potential employer Googled her name, my story came up. She was the villain in a viral article about family abuse. No one wanted to hire her. She tried to rebrand herself using mom's maiden name, but the internet never forgets. Someone always connected the dots. I heard through the grapevine that she'd had a nervous breakdown, that she was living back at home because she couldn't afford her own place, that she'd started therapy to deal with the public backlash. I felt nothing. Maybe I should have felt sympathy or at least satisfaction. But mostly I just felt free. They couldn't hurt me anymore. Their opinions didn't matter. Their presence in my life was so completely severed that even their suffering didn't touch me. I graduated summa cum laude from Stanford with a degree in computer science and a minor in business. My company was valued at $75 million by then. I'd already had offers from major tech companies wanting to acquire us, but I wasn't selling. This was mine. I'd built it from nothing, and I was going to see it through. The graduation ceremony was beautiful. The sun was shining, the campus was gorgeous, and I was surrounded by friends who'd become my chosen family. I wore my cap and gown with pride, knowing I'd earned every single moment of this success. My parents weren't there. Emma wasn't there. I hadn't invited them, and they hadn't asked to come. But you know who was there? My friend's mother, the one who'd driven me to the airport 3 years ago. She'd flown out to California to watch me graduate, and she cried harder than my own mother ever had. She took photos, threw a party, told everyone who would listen how proud she was of me. That night, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, a nice two-bedroom in Palo Alto that I owned outright, and looked out at the city lights. I thought about the girl I'd been in my first life, working 3 jobs and drowning in debt, still trying to win love from people who'd never valued her. I thought about the girl standing in the rain at the bus stop, watching her family drive away. And I thought about who I'd become: successful, independent, loved by people who chose me every day. My phone buzzed, a text from my business partner about a meeting with investors next week, another from my friend group about weekend plans, a third from my therapist checking in, no texts from my family. They'd finally gotten the message. I smiled and went back inside. I had a life to live, a company to run, friends to see. I had everything I'd ever wanted, and I'd gotten it all on my own terms. They'd left me at that bus stop in the rain, thinking I was nothing without them. They were wrong. 5 years later, I stood in the lobby of a building I'd just purchased in downtown San Francisco. My company had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We'd expanded into educational technology, partnering with schools across the country to help students succeed. We employed 200 people. We were profitable, stable, and making a real difference. I was 30 years old, technically 25 in this life, but who's counting? And I'd just been featured on the cover of Forbes' 30 Under 30 issue. The article called me a visionary, a self-made success story, an inspiration to young women in tech. It didn't mention my family. I'd asked them not to. That story was over. This was a new chapter. I'd bought the building because I was expanding our headquarters. We needed more space for our growing team, but I'd also bought it because it was in the same neighborhood where I'd slept on a friend's couch in my first life, working overnight shifts at a convenience store. I wanted to remember where I'd come from. Not the family that had rejected me, but the girl who'd refused to give up, who'd worked and scraped and fought for every opportunity. That girl deserved this success. She deserved every moment of happiness I'd built. My assistant approached with a schedule for the day: press interviews, investor meetings, a tour of our new facility. My calendar was always full now, but I didn't mind. I loved my work. I loved my life. "Oh, and you got this," she said, handing me an envelope. It was marked personal, so I didn't open it. I looked at the envelope. The handwriting was familiar, my mother's careful script. My stomach tightened automatically, an old response I was still working on in therapy. I almost threw it away without opening it. I'd been clear about my boundaries. No contact meant no contact, but curiosity won. I opened the envelope and pulled out a single card. It was an invitation to Emma's wedding. I stared at it for a long moment, processing. Emma was getting married, to someone named David, apparently. The wedding was in 3 months at the country club where we'd spent summers as kids. The invitation was expensive, embossed, traditional. There was a handwritten note paper-clipped to it. "Claire, I know you probably won't come. I know I don't deserve to ask, but you're my sister and I want you there. I've spent the last 5 years in therapy working through what I did to you. I understand now how wrong I was. I understand that I can't undo the damage. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry, really, truly sorry. And if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Emma." I read the note 3 times, looking for the trap, the manipulation, the hidden agenda. But it seemed genuine. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain. Emma had never been uncertain about anything in her life. People can change, my therapist always said. They don't always change, but they can. I fold the invitation and note carefully and put them in my desk drawer. I didn't RSVP, yes, but I didn't throw them away either. Maybe someday I'd be ready to consider reconciliation. Maybe someday the idea of seeing my family wouldn't make my chest tight and my hands shake. But not today. Today I had a company to run, a life to live, success to savor. Today, I was exactly where I was meant to be. The day of Emma's wedding arrived. I didn't go. I sent a generic congratulations card with no return address just to prove to myself that I could be the bigger person. But I didn't attend, and I didn't respond to the note. Instead, I spent that day at a youth center I'd been funding, teaching coding classes to underprivileged kids. Kids who reminded me of myself, smart, ambitious, but overlooked. Kids who just needed someone to believe in them. I'd started the program a year ago, partnering with schools in low-income areas to provide free technology education. It was my way of giving back, of making sure other kids didn't have to fight as hard as I had for opportunities. One of my students, a 15-year-old girl named Maria, had just won a regional coding competition. She'd beaten out kids from expensive private schools with their fancy equipment and private tutors. She'd done it with determination, talent, and the refurbished laptop I'd given her. Watching her accept her award, seeing the pride in her eyes, I felt more satisfaction than I'd felt in years. This was what success meant to me now, not just building wealth or a company, but creating opportunities for others. "Thank you," Maria said to me afterward, clutching her trophy, "for believing in me when no one else did." "You earned this," I told her, "Isis. I just gave you the tools. You did the work." She hugged me and I felt something inside me settle. This was why I'd survived everything I'd been through. This was the purpose I'd found on the other side of trauma. That night, I went home to my apartment and opened a bottle of wine. I toasted to Maria, to all my students, to the life I'd built. I toasted to the girl who'd stood in the rain and decided she deserved better. And I toasted to the family I'd found, the friends who'd become my siblings, the mentors who'd become my parents, the community that had accepted me when my own blood relatives had not. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Claire?" It was my father's voice, older and shakier than I remembered. "Please don't hang up." I should have hung up. I should have maintained my boundaries. But I was curious about what he wanted after all these years. "You have 2 minutes," I said. I wanted to tell you I'm proud of you." His voice cracked. "I saw the Forbes article. I've been following your company. You've done incredible things." "Without your help," I said flatly. "Yes, without my help, without any of our help. Claire, I know I failed you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see what we did to you, what we stole from you." "What do you want, Dad?" "Nothing. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to hear me say I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. I'm sorry I let your mother and Emma treat you the way they did. I'm sorry I chose comfort and peace over protecting you. You deserved better. You always deserved better." Tears surprised me, sliding down my cheeks. I'd thought I was past this, past caring what they thought. But apparently some part of me had still been waiting for this apology. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. "But it doesn't change anything. You had 17 years to be my father. You chose not to be. I've built a life without you, and I don't need you in it now." "I understand." He was crying too. I could hear it in his voice. "I just needed you to know. You're an extraordinary person, Claire. You always were. I was just too blind to see it." He hung up without asking for anything else. No request for reconciliation, no plea for a relationship, just an apology and an acknowledgement. It should have felt like closure. Maybe someday it would. That night, I dreamed about the bus stop. But this time, when my mother's car drove away, I didn't stand there waiting. I called that Uber, went home, packed my bags, and left. In the dream, I was smiling. I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. 3 more years passed. My company went public with an IPO that made me a billionaire at 28. Well, technically 33, but again, who's counting? The wealth was surreal. Growing up with financial anxiety, even in a wealthy household where I was deliberately excluded from that wealth, had left deep scars. Now I had more money than I could spend in a lifetime, and I was determined to use it wisely. I expanded my educational programs to 50 cities. I funded scholarships for first generation college students. I donated to causes that helped abused and neglected children. I used my platform to speak about family trauma and the importance of chosen family. I bought a house in the Bay Area, nothing ostentatious, just a comfortable 4-bedroom with a view of the bay. I decorated it myself, with art from local artists and furniture I actually liked, not status symbols meant to impress people. I adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Charlie who'd been found abandoned on the side of the road. We understood each other, Charlie and I. Both of us left behind by people who should have cared for us, both of us finding our way to something better. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. I was learning that I was okay being alone, that I didn't need a relationship to complete me. If the right person came along, great. If not, I was happy with the life I'd built. I went back to therapy regularly, working through layers of trauma I hadn't even realized I was carrying. My therapist helped me understand that my family's rejection wasn't a referendum on my worth. It was a reflection of their inability to love anyone who didn't serve their image of perfection. I learned to grieve the family I'd never had, the childhood I'd deserved but never received. I learned to stop waiting for them to change, to realize, to apologize. My father's phone call had been the exception, not the rule. My mother never called. Emma sent a few more letters over the years, each one claiming growth and change, each one asking for another chance. I read them but never responded. Maybe I was being unfair, maybe they really had changed, but I'd learned that I didn't owe them my forgiveness or my presence just because they'd finally developed consciences. The damage they'd done had shaped my entire life, both lives. That couldn't be undone with apologies. And honestly, I was happy without them, happier than I'd ever been. I didn't wake up hoping for their love anymore. I didn't measure my success by whether they noticed it. I was free of them in every way that mattered. On the 10th anniversary of the day they'd left me at the bus stop, 8 years in this timeline, I took myself to dinner at the nicest restaurant in San Francisco. I wore a designer dress I'd bought without looking at the price tag. I ordered expensive wine in the chef's tasting menu. I celebrated alone, and it felt perfect. Halfway through dinner, I noticed a family a few tables over. 2 parents, 2 daughters, one older, one younger. The parents were fawning over the older daughter, who was talking about her college plans. The younger daughter sat quietly, pushing food around her plate, invisible. I saw myself in her, both versions of myself, the girl who'd accepted her invisibility, and the woman who'd fought her way out of it. When the family got up to leave, I stopped their server and handed him my business card. "Give this to the younger daughter," I said. "Tell her if she ever needs someone to talk to about college, careers, or just life, she can email me." The server looked confused but agreed. I didn't know if she'd reach out. Maybe she had a great relationship with her family and I'd misread the situation. Maybe not, but if she needed help, she'd have my contact information. She'd know someone saw her. That was all I could do. See others the way I'd wanted to be seen. Help them the way I'd needed help. Break the cycle of neglect and cruelty by being the person I'd needed when I was young. At 35 years old, 40 in my first life, I stood at the podium of a major tech conference as the keynote speaker. The auditorium was packed with thousands of people, all there to hear me talk about building ethical technology companies and creating inclusive workplace cultures. I'd been invited because of my company's success, but also because of my outspoken advocacy for employees' mental health and work-life balance. In an industry known for burning out young workers, my company was known for actually caring about our people. We had generous parental leave, mental health days, flexible schedules. We paid well and promoted from within. We actively recruited from underrepresented communities and had programs to support first-generation professionals. I'd built the company I wished had existed when I was struggling in my first life. A place where hard work was rewarded, where people were valued for their contributions rather than their connections, where you didn't have to sacrifice your health or happiness for success. As I looked out at the audience, I saw people who reminded me of my younger self. Hungry, ambitious, trying to prove themselves. I wanted them to know they could succeed without compromising who they were, without accepting abuse or neglect as the price of admission to success. My journey to this stage wasn't traditional, I began. I didn't come from a supportive family or have connections that opened doors. I succeeded because I refused to accept other people's limitations as my own. Because I learned that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you need, and that's okay. You can build your own family, your own support system, your own definition of success. I talked about the importance of documentation, of protecting yourself, of knowing your worth even when no one else sees it. I talked about the danger of tying your self-esteem to people who don't value you. I talked about the freedom that comes from walking away from toxicity, even when it's hard. The speech got a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of people lined up to talk to me. They told me their own stories of family dysfunction, of being overlooked or undervalued. They thanked me for speaking publicly about something many people kept hidden. One woman, probably in her 50s, waited until everyone else had left. She approached me with tears in her eyes. "I'm Emma's mother-in-law," she said quietly. "David's mother. I wanted to meet you and tell you that your sister talks about you all the time. She's genuinely changed, Claire. She's in therapy, she's taken accountability for everything. She knows she can't undo the past, but she's trying to be better." I stood very still, processing this information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think you deserve to know. Not because you owe her forgiveness. You don't. But because sometimes people really do change, and you should get to decide what to do with that information with all the facts." She handed me a photo. Emma and David with two small children, a boy and a girl. They were laughing, the kids covered in what looked like finger paint. "She named her daughter Claire," David's mother said softly. "She wanted her to have a strong namesake." I stared at the photo for a long time. The little girl did look like Emma had as a child. Like I had too, though no one had ever noticed the resemblance. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally. "But I'm still not ready for contact. Maybe someday, just not yet." "I understand. Emma does too. She just wanted you to know she's sorry, and that she's trying to be the kind of mother who doesn't play favorites, who sees both her children clearly." After she left, I sat in my hotel room with the photo. I studied my niece's face. This child I'd never met who carried my name. Part of me wondered if this was another manipulation, a new tactic to get me to lower my guard. But a larger part, the part that had spent years in therapy, that had learned to trust my instincts, believed it was genuine. People could change. I had changed, after all. I'd gone from a victim to a survivor to a thriver. Why couldn't Emma change too? But that didn't mean I had to let her back into my life. Change was about her becoming a better person for herself and her children. It didn't obligate me to witness it or participate in it. I could acknowledge her growth and still maintain my boundaries. Both things could be true. I put the photo in my wallet. Not where I'd see it every day, but somewhere I wouldn't lose it. Maybe someday I'd want to meet my niece and nephew. Maybe someday I'd be ready to hear Emma's apologies in person. But not today. Today, I had a life that made me happy, a purpose that fulfilled me, and peace that I'd fought too hard to achieve. I wouldn't risk that peace even for the possibility of reconciliation. Maybe that made me unforgiving. Maybe it made me self-protective. Probably both. I was okay with that. Now, at 40 years old, 45 in my first life, though the lines between lives had blurred years ago, I sit in my home office looking out at the bay. Charlie is asleep at my feet, gray around the muzzle now, but still my faithful companion. My company is thriving. My programs have helped thousands of students. I've built a life that matters. I received another letter from Emma yesterday. She sends one every year on the anniversary of the day I left, even though I never respond. This one was different, though. "Claire, I don't expect you to read this, much less respond, but I needed to tell you that Mom died last week. Heart attack. It was quick. Dad wants to know if you'll come to the funeral. I told him I doubt it, but that I'd ask. I'm not writing to pressure you or guilt you. I'm writing because you have the right to know, and because you deserve the choice about whether to come say goodbye." For what it's worth, she talked about you at the end. She said she wished she'd been a better mother to you. She said she was sorry. I don't know if that matters to you anymore. I don't know if it should matter, but I thought you should know. The funeral is on Saturday at 2 p.m. You know where. Whatever you decide, I hope you're happy. I mean that. I hope you've built a beautiful life far away from all of us. I hope you found people who love you the way we should have. Love, Emma. I've been sitting with this letter for 2 days now, trying to decide what to feel. My mother is dead. The woman who gave birth to me but never really mothered me. The woman who overlooked every accomplishment, dismissed every hurt, chose my sister over me 1,000 times. The woman who left me standing in the rain and drove away without a second thought. I should feel something: grief, anger, relief, satisfaction, something. But mostly I just feel empty, like hearing about the death of someone I used to know a long time ago. She's been dead to me for 23 years in this life, longer if you count my first life. This just makes it official. I won't go to the funeral. I decided that immediately. I don't need closure from a coffin. I found my closure years ago, standing in the rain, watching her car disappear. I found it when I got on that plane to California. I found it every day. I built my life without her approval. But I write back to Emma, the first contact I've initiated in 23 years. Emma, thank you for telling me about Mom. I won't be attending the funeral. I said my goodbye to her a long time ago. I hope you're well. I hope you're being the mother to your children that we didn't have. That's the best revenge any of us can get, breaking the cycle. I'm not ready for a relationship with you or Dad. I may never be, but I appreciate you respecting my boundaries all these years. That means more than you know. I'm happy. Really, truly happy. I have a good life, good people around me, and work that matters. That's enough. Take care of yourself and your family, Claire. I mail the letter and feel something release in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, not reconciliation, but acknowledgement. Recognition that we're all just people doing our best, even when our best is deeply flawed. My mother did her best, and it wasn't good enough. Emma did her worst, and she's trying to atone for it. My father failed to protect me, and he's living with that guilt. And me? I survived, thrived, and built something beautiful from the ashes of my childhood. That's my story. Not the tragic tale of the abandoned daughter, but the triumphant story of the woman who abandoned them back and discovered she was better off for it. 5 years later, I'm 45 years old, attending my company's 20th anniversary celebration. 20 years since I started building an app in my dorm room, angry and determined and alone. 20 years since I left my family behind and never looked back. The celebration is huge. All our employees, past and present, plus their families. There's a video tribute showcasing our impact. 10 million students reached, 50,000 scholarships given, hundreds of millions of dollars donated to educational causes. They're honoring me as the founder, but I make sure the tribute focuses on our team, our mission, our collective impact. I'm just one person. The company has grown far beyond me. During the cocktail hour, my assistant approaches nervously. There's someone here who says she's your niece? She showed ID, Claire Morrison. She's 18. She says Emma sent her with a letter, but she won't attend without your permission. My heart stutters. The little girl from the photo, now grown, named after me, carrying the weight of her mother's regret, says, "Send her in," I say. The young woman who enters is stunning, tall, confident, with Emma's features but something different in her eyes. A kindness, maybe. A clarity. "Aunt Claire," she says, and then laughs nervously. "That's weird to say. I've been calling you that my whole life, but we've never met." "Hello, Claire," I say. "You can call me, well, Claire works fine. Or Cece if that's less confusing." "Mom calls you Claire," she says. "I've always been Little Claire or LC to differentiate." We sit. She's nervous, fidgeting with the envelope in her hands. "Mom wanted me to give you this," she says. "But first, I wanted to say thank you for being my namesake. For being the reason my mom learned to be a better person. I know you don't owe us anything, and I'm not here to ask for anything. I just wanted to meet you once. To see the woman whose name I carry." I take the envelope but don't open it yet. "Tell me about yourself," I say. "Your life, your dreams." "Not your mother's story, yours." She lights up. "I'm starting at MIT in the fall. Computer science, like you. I want to build educational technology too. Not to copy you. I mean, obviously, you're an inspiration, but I have my own ideas about adaptive learning algorithms, and she catches herself rambling and blushes. Sorry, I get excited. Don't apologize, I say. I'm the same way. Tell me about your algorithms. We talk for an hour. She's brilliant, passionate, innovative. She's also kind, humble, and deeply thoughtful about the ethics of technology. She's nothing like Emma was at 18, or rather, she's like the Emma that could have been if our mother hadn't poisoned her with entitlement and cruelty. Your mom did well, I say finally, raising you. She tried really hard, little Claire says quietly. She talks about you sometimes, about how she treated you, how she stole from you, how she was so caught up in being the favorite that she couldn't see you as a person. She says it's her biggest regret, and that my brother and I will never understand how lucky we are to have parents who love us equally. She told you everything? When I was 16. She said I needed to know the truth about where I came from, about the mistakes she made. She said you deserved better than her apologies, but that she'd spend her whole life trying to be worthy of your name. I open the letter. It's short. Claire, our daughter asked if she could meet you. I told her about you, all of it, the good and the bad. Mostly the bad I did to you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should meet her if you want to. She's remarkable. She's everything I wasn't. Kind, ethical, generous. She's more like you than like me. If you don't want to see her, I understand. If you want to be in her life as a mentor or aunt, I'd be honored. If you want nothing to do with any of us, I'll respect that too. Thank you for giving me your name for her. It's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. The reminder every day of the sister I lost through my own cruelty and the motivation to be better. Love, Emma. I look at the young woman in front of me, my niece, my namesake, my sister's daughter. She's watching me with Emma's eyes, but with an openness Emma never had. Would you like an internship? I ask. At my company this summer, before MIT starts? We have a program for incoming freshmen in computer science. Her face breaks into a huge smile. Really? That would be yes, absolutely. Good. Email my assistant Monday. We'll set it up. I pause. And maybe we could get coffee sometime. Not as aunt and niece necessarily, just as two Claire Morrisons who love technology and want to change the world. I'd like that, she says softly. A lot. After she leaves, I sit with the letter for a long time. This isn't forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that, but maybe it's something else, not reconciliation, but connection. Acknowledgement that Emma's daughter isn't responsible for Emma's sins, that this bright, kind young woman deserves to know her aunt if she wants to. Maybe I can mentor her the way I wish someone had mentored me. Maybe I can be in her life without letting Emma fully back into mine. Maybe boundaries can be flexible without being broken. I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try. Today is my 50th birthday, 55 if we're counting both lives, but I stopped doing that years ago. I'm just Claire now, one continuous life, one unbroken story of survival and success. I'm hosting a party at my home, something I rarely do, but this is a big birthday, a milestone worth celebrating. My house is full of people I love, my team from work, my friends from Stanford, the people who've become my family over the years. Little Claire is here too. Just Claire now that she's 23 and graduated from MIT with honors. She's working at my company as a senior engineer, brilliant and kind and everything I hoped she'd be. We have coffee every Sunday and talk about technology, ethics, and life. She's as close to a daughter as I'll ever have, though we don't use that language. We're just two women who share a name and a passion. She brought her mother. I almost asked her not to. But Claire, my Claire, little Claire, though she's not so little anymore, had asked so earnestly, said Emma had been in therapy for decades now, said she'd never asked for anything before. So I said yes. Emma arrives late, which is somehow fitting. But when I see her, I'm struck by how much she's aged. She's 52, but she looks older. Gray hair, lines around her, eyes. A a softness to her that wasn't there before. "Thank you for letting me come," she says quietly. "I know I don't deserve to be here." "You don't," I agree. "But your daughter does, and she wanted you here, so here you are." We stand awkwardly for a moment. Decades of hurt between us, oceans of words unsaid. "I'm sorry," Emma says finally. "I know I've said it before, I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry for everything. I was a terrible sister. I stole your opportunities, your childhood, your family. I can't undo any of it. But I want you to know that I've spent every day since trying to be better, to be the kind of person who deserves to share a name with our daughter." I look at her, really look at her, and see something I never expected. Genuine remorse. Not performative guilt or manipulation, but real, bone-deep regret. "I believe you," I say. "I believe you've changed, but that doesn't mean we can have a relationship. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed." "I know," she says. "I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it again, in person. You deserved a better sister. I'm sorry I wasn't her." Later, as the party winds down and people start to leave, I watch Emma with her daughter. The way she looks at Claire with pure pride and love, no competition or comparison. The way she encourages her, supports her, believes in her, she really did break the cycle. I catch myself feeling something unexpected. Not forgiveness exactly, but resolution. Understanding that people are complex, that growth is possible, that someone can do terrible things and still become better. Emma will never be my sister again. We'll never have family dinners or inside jokes or the kind of bond we should have had. But maybe we can have this. Polite distance, acknowledgement of the past, mutual investment in the next generation. Maybe that's enough. As the last guests leave, I stand on my deck watching the sunset over the bay. Charlie is gone now, peacefully in his sleep last year, but I've adopted another rescue, a young shepherd mix named Hope. She leans against my leg, warm and solid and present. I think about the girl I was in both lives, the one who waited for love that never came, who worked herself to death, trying to earn approval from people who'd never give it. The one who stood in the rain and watched her family drive away. That girl saved me. Her pain, her determination, her refusal to accept less than she deserved, it all led here, to this life, this success, this peace. I never answered their calls. I built my own family, my own success, my own happiness. And in doing so, I became exactly who I was meant to be, not someone's overlooked daughter or forgotten sister, but Claire Morrison, a woman who knew her worth and never settled for less. The rain doesn't scare me anymore. I have a car, a home, people who would never leave me waiting. I have everything I needed and more than I ever dreamed. And if I close my eyes, I can still see her, 17-year-old me, standing at that bus stop, making the decision that changed everything, choosing herself, choosing freedom, choosing a life beyond the family that never valued her. I whisper into the evening air, "Thank you. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being strong. Thank you for walking away and never looking back. Thank you for becoming me." The sun sets, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Hope barks happily at a seagull. Inside, my home is warm and full of the echoes of laughter from people who chose to celebrate me. This is my life. This is my victory. And I earned every single moment of it.